But first, everyone will have seen the heartbreaking footage of the bushfires in California, but not everyone will have taken the time to read about the widespread criticism of California's leadership, which some have argued have made the fires more difficult to contain. Now, one marketing clip, which has gone viral, does a pretty good job of summarising the obsession with identity politics, which has infected leadership of critical emergency services.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
This woman is a Los Angeles Fire Department diversity chief, and she is making the argument that it is your fault if you are trapped in a burning building and a female firefighter isn't strong enough to save you. Now, that's pretty disgusting and reprehensible commentary. It isn't very inclusive either, as people with disabilities can be caught in fires, and we know the fires are so fast-moving in California that simply anyone can get caught out. And this is what their marketing team proudly published as well. It's their culture, an aggressive victim-blaming culture of identity politics above all. And of course, this rubbish was called out by many people, including Elon Musk, which prompted media organisations like the Sydney Morning Herald to criticise him. Reporter Bianca Hall writes, "Disinformation reigns as bushfires devastate California." And speaking about Musk, she alleged diversity, equity and inclusion, DEI, investments and hiring processes, he has repeatedly said, have caused deaths that could otherwise have been avoided if more white men were fighting the fires. Now, he actually never explicitly said that. And if he had, she would have quoted directly what he said. She just verbaled him. And it is false, and it's an effort to strawman a broader and legitimate argument about these insane priorities and racist hiring practices at some emergency services. In fact, the reporting was so unhinged that one of their own writers called it out. In a tweet which has since been deleted, SMH columnist Parnell McGuinness took aim at her own masthead for basically misrepresenting Musk's position. She said that credible outlets make themselves less credible by making up misinformation about misinformation. Musk suggested that fire services should not preference DEI hires over people who could do the job, a subtle but important difference to what is implied here. Now, either these reporters, such as Bianca Hall, are so stupid that they don't understand the argument, or they simply don't care. And for the record, if it is the latter, then that is a real case of disinformation. Well, joining me on the show this week is the Australians Darren Davidson and Sky News contributor Louise Roberts. Louise, what we saw in that clip from this very senior fire chief telling people that if they're the ones trapped in the building, well, they've done the wrong thing. They're the ones who've got themselves in the wrong spot. I find it astonishing that journalists are somehow defending that and also trying to make the argument that it's almost immoral to point out that that's just clearly wrong.
Well, I do wonder what Christine Larson's sort of position is. Is she somehow also, by extension, blaming the good people of Los Angeles for the current fire situation, the people who've lost their homes and the businesses that burnt to the ground and the absolute devastation, the multi-billion dollars of damage that's been caused? I do find that when Parnell sort of called out her own paper for whitewashing the issue and sort of somehow suggesting that Musk had made this comment saying there should be more white men being hired rather than more diverse candidates, people have really recognised DEI as being a major factor in why these fires are not under control and why the priority has been for training firefighters and not enough water in the fire hydrants. I mean, from my point of view, it's a campaign, a 3-year campaign within that fire department, which should be stopped now. Yeah,
and I think Darren, let's bring you in here because there's clearly a cultural element in the fire department as well, which is important to talk about. Because it's not like journalists went sorting through archive footage and this was leaked from their internal servers, internal training material. This was published by the fire service as part of this identity politics propaganda push that they do when they're all trying to be pro-identity politics. They've published this commentary out there. It's come back to bite them, obviously. It was an older video, but it goes to show how they think about it.
It does. I actually lived in the area from 2021 until 2022 where the fires are happening right now. My son was born there, so I had a very good exposure to the way that local resources are managed. And I think a lot of the commentary and some of the commentary you've referenced is just a clear attempt to distract from the failure of state and local government to contain fires that often accompany the Santa Ana fires, which are a part of the climate in that region. Look, no question, human activity impacts climate, but you often have dry seasons following wet seasons. That's very, very common. That's been happening in California for hundreds of years. What's actually happened here is that Gavin Newsom and the Democrats have mismanaged local resources. They've underinvested in water storage and land management. If you look at the federal budget, the state budget for California coming up, they've slashed resource management for Cal Fire by half, which is a huge reduction, and that's why these fires are happening. It's very, very sad. As someone that lived there, it's actually devastating to see what's happening to those people's homes and those communities which are actually devastated. I really do hope, and we see a change in how those local resources are managed and how the state is led by Gavin Newsom, who is he's a disaster. And we've seen this around the US in recent years, and it's one of the reasons why Trump's back in the White House, which is that a lot of these cities have been really, really grossly mismanaged at a state and local level in terms of resourcing.
Yeah, well said.